Welcome to the Kerrville Bible Church Pastors Podcast 100th episode. Thank you. I was hoping you would clap, but I didn't want to do that because we're on video. But we are so glad that you are here. It is just, this is kind of strange. I've never been a part of anything like this that's lasted this long, except for marriage and your salvation, parenting, your salvation.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
life.
Yeah. So Chris thought we were going to make this authentic and dress like we usually do on Wednesdays, but he thought about what you were going to text us and say, "What are y'all wearing?" Right? Mm-hmm. But you're like, "No, certainly they'll be casual." Mm-hmm. But yeah,
right. So
we were not.
After tonight, you're all fired. And then you're rehired Monday mornings.
Well, with that out of the way,
yes,
it's just great to be here, and great that you could join us. And we have, if you haven't listened to the podcast, I'm sure, has anybody not listened to the podcast? It's here. Kennedy. Yeah. We have a lot of fun. We delve into some serious topics and we delve into some light topics, but we have a lot of fun. And this event tonight is intended to be fun. Nothing heavy, no issue to discuss unless you bring it up. And there will be a number for you to text, or I'll have a microphone roving around the room later if you want to ask some questions. But as we start, I just wanted to kind of give a brief history of the podcast and how we got started, and let the guys kind of chime in. And as we do, I do have to make a confession that these last 2+ years have been a blur. And so I completely did not acknowledge that Scott has been a part of the podcast from the beginning. If you listen to our last episode, I said, "No, you haven't been here from the beginning," but he totally has. It's just,
Toby's only acknowledged my being a pastor here for about 6 months, I think.
6.
He didn't even know you've ever preached.
Murray hasn't been here from the beginning. And then we had Rodrigo was here for a while.
That's true.
Not here.
1 year.
There's been some moving. There's been some.
We've had some moving parts, some fun people. We had Heath was part of it when we started. He was part of that first group. Then we had Rodrigo. Hawkins had left by then to go to Louisville, but
March 25th, 2020.
Yeah,
was the first one.
Yeah, and so really, how it started was just an idea of, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we just had kind of a fly on the wall perspective of what we do on Wednesday? And we'll talk more about what we do on Wednesdays, but then it kind of turned into something. It became more than that. It was on Chris's phone, right? Didn't we just record it on your phone, that first one?
Right. Originally, it happened when we shut down during COVID. And It was a way to try to stay in contact with the church, aside from the live stream on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So Chris you did a couple of just sort of devotionals.
Right, first 3 were pastoral devotionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
That were the first 3, and then they kind of became more of a group effort podcast.
Yeah, they're actually called that. I mean, I didn't even know what it was going to be called, and I certainly didn't think it was going to last this long. And so I decided, well, we're just going to call it Pastoral Devotional, very marketing friendly. Just call it what it is. Right. If it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, let's call it a duck, right? And then it became something else. And it really became something else like the second week. And I was already kind of done with it by then. I was like, why are we still doing this? But I wasn't here the second week. So that worked out well.
Right.
And that was when we discussed that 9 marks, or when you discussed that 9 marks article about the sermons from the top, the biggest evangelical churches in America, right? Okay. So Yeah, that's what it was. We were shut down. We were not meeting live because of COVID, and we just wanted another kind of touch point. And we were scrambling. We didn't have to scramble for live stream. We were already up and running with that. Very thankful for that. But Sunday morning, if you were here in the March, April, May time frame of 2020, there was no live worship on Sunday morning. We were singing and preaching to an empty room, and except for the cardboard cutouts from I think it was from the Pasnick home group, which was adorable, and we were thankful for that. But that was a hard time. It was a hard time for a lot of churches. A hard time for our church, especially. We just value this corporate gathering, and so we needed more ways to interact with you through that time. So here we are, and that's how and why it got started. You have anything to add to that?
Well, it's a good thing came out of COVID.
Yeah.
We've got a list here of the 100 topics that we've covered, and it's substantial. If you look at the whole list of all the things we've touched on, all the different people we've interviewed, had through the podcast, we've talked about everything from humor in the Christian life to the mortification of sin, friendship, expository preaching, what is faith, why fight sin, the security of the believer, heroes of the Christian faith. On and on and on.
Yeah.
And we were kind of joking earlier. It's like we've run out of material. Well, we have the Bible and we're Christians. We'll never run out of material, but we will definitely have to touch on some of these again and again,
right,
as we go along. But I just feel like there's a substantial body of work being built here amongst the people who've been involved in them that hopefully is a good resource as we go forward to point people to on different topics. So yeah.
So my next question and the next kind of topic is, why didn't we quit? Why did we decide to keep going? And how did we come to that decision? We actually didn't come to a decision. We just kept going. We didn't stop. And that's kind of rare for our church, isn't it? We put a lot of things down. We start and stop a lot of things if it's not working. And that's one of the things I've mentioned that about at your 20th anniversary. You're not afraid to just kill something if it's not working. There's no sacred cows, and so this podcast isn't a sacred cow. But for some reason we just kept on going.
I think. I'll chime in there. I think because we were having fun as a group, but more than that, we were getting feedback from you guys.
Yeah.
And people who are not here saying, oh, wow, we really love these podcasts. We really enjoy them. We get to hear and see another side of y'all that we don't on a normal basis. And the banter, the camaraderie, the unity, that was, I think, too, we'd all say that was a surprising outgrowth of this. Very, very pleasant surprise was how indirectly these podcasts and our relationship together that comes out through the podcast, how that encouraged the body of Christ here. Mm-hmm. And so as long as people were going, every so often get texts, get comments at church, hey, heard the podcast, enjoyed it, loved it, whatever, laughed about it, so forth, so on. That's kind of, at the end of the day, that's why we've kept going. If we got down to like 5, downloads, and they were, me, and then, I actually listen to, I listen to every podcast. Because when you're in the moment, you're thinking about what you're going to say next, and these guys will say stuff that I didn't even remember them saying. And I go listen to it, I was like, wow, that was really good. I didn't even know they said that. And I listened to it at 1.5 speed, which I highly recommend because we all talk too slow, and so, except Murray. But at 1.5 speed, you can get through the thing, in 20 minutes, move on to the next thing. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was just the feedback that we were getting. I manage if you send the text, that we give it, or the email address that we give at the end of each podcast episode, I'm the one that gets those, and we're getting feedback from people that I have never met before. People out of state saying, "I've found your podcast, love it, thinking about moving to Kerrville because of your church," and just hearing us talk to one another, it's encouraging to them. And this particular person that I'm talking about, she was in an area where she was really the only believer among her circle, and so excuse me. And so she's considering moving to Kerrville. And then I remember one day we came in that was when we were recording in the library, and had a note scribbled on, I can't remember if it was a napkin or a paper bag, and scribbled in crayon or marker, and it just, somebody wanted to leave a note. They knew that we were going to be in there at They knew that we were going to be in there recording and wanted to leave us a note. So
I remember that.
It's that kind of thing that keeps us going. Your feedback, knowing that it's a benefit to you, has been what's kept us going for these 99 plus episodes. So
I think it took a long time for us to get comfortable. It took us probably a couple months, to get comfortable with even the format and doing it, because none of us had really done anything like this before. And
right.
So I think as we got more comfortable, I think the podcast got better, over time.
Yeah, more comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And just being on a mic and hearing ourselves recorded. What you don't know is that actually one of the top questions when we brought Murray on was we didn't care about youth. We were like, will he make a good podcast co-host? That's. Yeah, and the answer is no. But
I was going to say, what's the?
But we kept him around anyway because he is good with the youth.
Yeah. Thanks.
To keep our thousands of listeners happy, right?
That's right. Thousands and thousands. So,
however, we should note that, maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, don't give away our secrets yet.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me to our third topic is what is our process and the history of the podcast. Is that right? Is that right, Garrett? Hello. Yes, the process.
The process.
When the power went out, I think it knocked out that TV. Thank you. Perfect.
There we go.
Thank you. You did so well. So we mentioned earlier that when we started, it was actually just a mic in a room on our pastoral devotion time. So what you may or may not know is our Wednesday process, our Wednesday schedule is that we meet at 11:15. It was in the library, and then it was upstairs in the FLC. We've settled in Murray's, what we call his cave now. We've got a round table in there, and one of us leads a devotion time, and then we pray together. We have just a time of prayer. It's, I don't know, half hour long or so, and then we launch into the podcast recording from there. But it started out with just the pastoral devotion being recorded, and then it became, let's talk about something else. And so it was that 9 Marks article, and then from there we kind of graduated to a little handheld recorder that has a couple of mics, and then I have a couple more mics that I plugged into it, and then I think, Chris, you decided that it was not good, so we invested in a dedicated podcast recorder and 4 mics, and at that point I was thinking, this is still not going to last. We're not going to do this for very much longer, so I'm going to buy the cheapest mics I can get, and so I bought just $30 mics, and we've been doing that for about a year and a half, I think, and then a very generous benefactor of the podcast, is that right, benefactor? Mm-hmm. Is that the right word? Okay, who has a lot of radio experience, said, y'all need better mics, and so he outfitted us with some really nice broadcast quality microphones, and we're very thankful for that. But yeah, and then Wednesday afternoon, it used to be a lot simpler, and then started doing more with the podcast and putting the little sound bites on Facebook and YouTube and all that. So Wednesday afternoons really become podcast day, from editing and uploading and marketing and all that. So, but I do really enjoy it.
And it wasn't long ago that we decided, the three of us, that you would be the permanent host.
Yeah, let's
Permanent host.
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
He didn't get a choice. We all decided that
I was railroaded into
we need a permanent
the
host, and
hosting
he's
chair.
the best. He is.
Yeah, I
definitely
remember
the best.
we were sitting at Buzzy's barbecue, and y'all said, "Yeah, Toby, you should host every week." And so, anyway, we started making a list of. At the time, it was just the Christianese one-liners that we were making the list of, and just started brainstorming a list of topics. So I get to choose the topics, and if I am feeling generous, I let them know the day before what the topic is going to be. And if not, then I tell them 5 seconds before what the topic is going to be, or in the moment. So
But he
they love
also
that.
thought that he would be immune from actually participating in the discussion. That he
Yeah,
would
I
just
really thought I
answer
was
the
just going to ask questions.
But we don't allow that. We throw them back at him.
I know.
'Cause-
I was looking
yeah.
forward to hosting just so I could ask questions and not actually have to say anything. but yeah, I do enjoy it, and enjoy getting to use some audio editing skills to bring this podcast to the internets. But what you might be surprised to learn is that there is very little editing done on our podcast. There's no cut and paste and I didn't like that, we're going to cut that out. It's pretty much a one hot take, and so I don't know if we're just that good or the podcast is just that bad. I don't know.
Yeah, we're just lazy.
Yeah,
Or if
Yeah.
it would really matter if we did
right.
at the end of the day.
But at this point, I think we're ready for the Kerrville Bible Church Pastors Podcast Top 10 list. Are we not? Is that next, Garrett? Yeah.
All right.
So this is our top 10. These are our top 10 downloaded episodes, and number 10 is that it's not the first one. That was the 25th. This is the second one. This is the 9 Marks article that I was mentioning earlier,
Okay.
where they analyzed the 4 sermons from the top. I can't remember how many churches across America. The biggest churches, evangelical churches in America, and I didn't even listen to that one, but I'm sure it was good. I mean, it made the top 10 list.
There you go.
But then number 9 was COVID-19 update. This was somewhere around December, I think, of 2020, after we had reopened and re-entry was slow, and we just wanted to try to encourage people that it's okay to come back to church. That one was a little controversial. Kind of ruffled a few feathers, but I think it was an important episode. Number 8 is the role of emotions in the Christian life. This was a fairly recent episode, it seems like. I don't have the date on it, but that was the one that became kind of a counseling Toby session, right? Where
It was kind of an emotional roller coaster, as I recall.
yeah,
November 3rd.
November 3rd. Yeah, I kind of confessed that I was just I was unfeeling and flat. And
Right.
no, yeah, we're
I
like,
remember,
no,
was
you're
that
not.
the podcast where at some point you said, "This is really making me uncomfortable"? Was that?
Yeah, I
that
don't. I
podcast?
think that's what when I said I don't like how emotions make me feel.
Right.
So I choose not to have them.
That was one of those moments in a podcast that I honestly kind of forgot we were in a podcast. I mean, you can't totally forget because microphones are right in your face.
Right.
But it was just one of those moments where the further we went, it just got more and more transparent and personal, and I was just like, the difference between the podcast and the devotional and prayer time just kind of went away.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was.
I was transparent. You guys were
no,
not.
right, exactly.
Number 7. What About Evil with our resident scholar and author, Scott
don't
Christensen.
leave me hanging. We've got time to give a high five here. Come on.
Don't flick the fly over here. You keep it. All right. There is a fly like buzzing around Murray's microphone. Yeah.
Was a lot of bad stuff in that podcast.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But you said somewhere that was the best interview that you had about your book.
It was, actually.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of podcasts with just other podcasts on my book.
Yeah.
And that was the best.
It's probably because we hadn't read it.
Yeah. I think so.
We meaning you?
Actually,
Chris has read it.
Actually,
I
it's
wasn't
just
there.
the opposite. The
that's right.
interviewer in this case
wasn't there.
actually had read your book.
That's right.
I mean, maybe Chris was the only one that asked questions in that one. I don't really remember.
I read your book, Scott.
But this is the Christianity Today, right? Book of the Year? Or World Magazine? Which one was it?
World
It was
Magazine,
World
Theology,
Magazine.
Theology
Book of the Year in Practical Theology?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, great to be able to be a part of that. Number 6.
In a small way. That you,
In a small
you were
way.
part of that in a very
Yeah,
small,
a small way. I have to think, I can't help but think that we're responsible for at least $1 worth of royalties.
Okay. Okay.
Number 6 was our podcast.
I bought you lunch the other day.
You did? Thank you. I bought you lunch 2 weeks before, so
Oh, yeah, that's
you
right.
owed me.
But who's counting?
Yeah, we don't need to tell this story. We got to lunch, and I'm going to tell the story. We got to lunch, and Scott's like, I forgot my wallet. Like, okay, I'll buy you lunch.
Convenient.
So, anyway.
And then we had agreed that I would pay for his next lunch, but I was out the next week. And then what I think would happen was Toby was probably afraid that I wouldn't offer to pay for his lunch. So he purposely left his wallet here at the office.
I left it, I lost it at home that day. Yeah, I left it at home. I did think you would forget, so I decided to remind you. And then I mentioned it on the podcast that you were still buying my lunch that day, so
Yes.
everybody were witnesses for that. Okay, we got to move on.
Yes.
Expository preaching was our number 6, and that was there was kind of the why and why it's important and why you should care and what it is and all that. So yeah, that was a good one. Number 5 was Introductions to the Doctrines of Grace. That was the beginning of kind of a 9-part Tulip miniseries? Was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Did it go that many?
It went
It
quite
did.
a ways. I
Yes,
can't
it
remember
did.
how many.
No, that's right. So the introduction was April 29th, 2021.
Yeah. So, and then we had 1 or 2 on depravity and 1 or 2 on election, and it was probably 2 parts on all the 5, not solas, but petals of the tulip. Good. All right. Number 4 was a conversation with our wives. And Murray wasn't here yet, but that podcast, I hear, was very instrumental in y'all coming here. Or
Yeah, we were listening to it on a walk when we were in El Paso. When we were interviewing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were deciding, hey, do we really want to go there? And ladies, you sold us. Way to go.
That really was a fun episode to record. Just hearing from.
We need to do that again.
I think so too.
It needs to be, yeah, we need a repeat of that. It's been a while. Y'all
I
send
agree.
him over here.
Have Katie on the show.
On the show.
But yeah,
The show.
it's a show. Of course, it's a
It is
show. Of course, it's a show. Yeah, but to have Kim and Melissa and Jennifer just talking about marriage and parenting and how we all met, it was just a great time together. Number 3, This one was kind of a tough one too. James Coates in persecution. After all that was going on in Canada, we really didn't think that anything like this would happen in the West. In the white West. Canada, especially, they're so nice. But to have a brother pastor in Canada, in the West, imprisoned for preaching the gospel, felt like we needed to discuss that, and really, I think it was to prepare one another and to prepare you for the fact that that persecution is coming, and it comes in ways that we may not even be prepared for yet.
He spent a month in jail.
Yeah.
In prison. I mean, it wasn't even like a county jail. I mean, it was prison. A month. And he wasn't the only one. I mean, he got a lot of attention in our circles, but there were a number of Canadian pastors who were in jail for, we're not talking about overnight. We're talking about significant time for having church.
Yeah.
Right? So, amazing.
Yeah. And several of those were faithful, gospel, Bible preaching, expository kind of pastors like James Coates was.
Right.
Yeah.
Those who really valued the gathering.
Yes.
Because it would have been easy to just be remote and preach over the Zoom, but those who really valued the corporate gathering were the ones who were targeted for that. So we saw him at Shepherd's Conference via video, of course, because he couldn't get in the country because of his vaccine status. But he said that their church has tripled in size since all that happened. So some good came out of that. Number 2, here's the one we were talking about earlier. It was a conversation with.
Was I there?
Frederick.
Was that before me?
Yeah, you were here.
That was.
That was part of your.
It was a little more than a year ago.
Yeah.
It was May 19th.
May 19th of 2021.
There you go.
Sir Frederick.
That was, you were visiting.
I was visiting.
You hadn't even moved here yet. That was
Had not-
part of the
that-
interview.
That was the candidate week.
Hadn't even bought a
That's
house
right.
yet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a full schedule, and because he wasn't going to preach that morning,
Right.
but you were going to be in front of the youth, and we had that youth meeting, and so we thought this would be a great way to to
You know
let
why it's
people-
number 2? I just realized this, just looking at the list. Murray was able to insert himself right in the middle of Tulip. We're coming off of...
Oh, yeah, he was
we're
riding the
coming off
tulip
of
wave.
2 sessions on unconditional election and just the swell of audience, listenership, and then he just rode that wave.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
because it doesn't show how many people logged off
Just
the podcast. It just shows how many
rode
logged
that
in.
wave.
right?
Yeah. It's beautiful.
That's
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Good timing, Murray.
But really, why would it even be in the top 10? It says something about the church because the church was interested in, because the church is part of the process. This is the body of Christ, right? Of who is going to be that other pastor. And so that's really what it says about the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And
Sure,
my
there's
charm.
100%.
Very, and of course your charm. Word got out on your
Yeah,
charm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So,
They were scared by your beard, and
That's right.
they wanted to know, what is this?
Yeah.
what is
Who's this
bearded
leprechaun?
guy?
Who's this leprechaun that we're hiring? Is there a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? That's all I really want to know. That's the number one question I get, right?
so then you moved here and it never rained again.
Yeah, for sure. No, it did that first at the beginning. It did.
Right.
Well, that brings us to
Without
the.
further-
Now, don't tell.
Go ahead.
I don't think you should tell them what it is. I think we should have people try to guess what the number 1 episode is.
Well, they may not even remember the last episode.
Well, I bet there are some people
Does anybody
that might be able to guess what they
I'll
think.
bet if we
Who
if we
thinks you
queried,
know what
if we queried the audience,
number?
I bet they'd figure out what the number 1
All
episode
right.
was.
All right.
What is the number
who's
1?
got it? Rachel? Oh, you're. A conversation with Lamar and Dee.
Yeah. Oh, look at
That was, without a doubt, most deservedly
Yes.
the top downloaded episode that we've ever had. What a special time that was.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk about that more in a minute, because I want to ask the guys what their favorite moments and episodes were. And so, but before we do.
Well, I need to do something. I need to resign from the podcast because 2 of the top 3, I wasn't there. Yeah. So, I'll take my papers.
All right, we're going to take bids on who wants to be the 4th person. All right.
Yeah.
So, do I hear 100? Do I hear 100? I got 100 over here.
I wasn't here for Lamar Dee, and I wasn't there for the James Coates and persecution.
You were not?
We were on that wretched vacation trip to Oklahoma that Heath Gregory sent us to. And I got back from my vacation. Somebody said, "How was your vacation?" I said, "It was dumb."
Was that the one where you got snowed in?
Yeah, snowed in, iced in, stormed in, electricity went out, windshield got broke, everything was closed.
Y'all have some pretty epic vacations.
Yes, it was epic. It was so typical McKnight from start to finish. So.
That's
right.
Yeah, his latest one with his dad. You'll have to hear about that one. Privately, he hinted on it in our last podcast. Hinted on the hotel, but you only talked about the Hampton Inn.
All right.
You did not talk about the Days Inn experience,
I
which we won't talk about.
I haven't even told Kim about the other.
Sorry.
Yeah, it could have been on Dateline.
Yeah.
60 Minutes investigation.
She's not going to let you go anywhere else.
Yeah. 2020 with Barbara Walters.
Moving on.
Oh, well, all right. That brings us to our total downloads to date, which kind of was a number that surprised me, actually.
Can we guess on that too? I wonder.
Wow.
16,300.
Wow. Total downloads.
Yeah. And that number's got to be bigger today by 1 or 2.
Especially after tonight.
Yes. Yeah. They're going to go and listen to every episode.
That's right.
After this. So, excellent. Well, I think, no. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So I want to hear from the guys, what have been your favorite moments of the last 100 episodes, 99 episodes?
Well, I mean, not many stand out. I mean, it's kind of all a blur. But one does stand out. And that's when we had Brother Ken Johnson come for his elder interview. And I think you were conducting the interview.
Yes, I was.
Because the partner elder does the interview. And Toby said, "So, Ken, tell us where you grew up."
That's all I asked.
And an hour later.
Where'd you grow up, Ken?
An hour later.
An hour later, we had Ken's entire life story, his testimony. Praise to the Lord. It was awesome. I'll never forget that moment.
And then there was a...
Wait, yeah. He left one thing out.
And then I said, all I asked you, Ken, was where you grew up. I knew all about his family history and his schooling and his testimony. I'd already heard his testimony. I hadn't even asked him.
That's all he needed.
Yeah, that definitely stands out. One that stands out. Well, the moments that stand out to me are the ones where the 4 of us and the others that have been on this podcast just are kind of joking with each other, just being funny and really being real. And I think it's because I said this before when we did a pastor Q&A back when Billy Jean was associate pastor. It was over in the fellowship hall, and I said what you need to know as our church family is that we really enjoy being with one another. There is no strife on this pastoral staff. There's no conflict on this pastoral staff. We truly enjoy one another. It's kind of like, you talk about a family, and the kids need to know that mom and dad are together. And there's a security in that. So I say that again, there's a security in this church because your pastoral staff, and it extends to the lay elders, we are friends and we truly love each other.
Amen.
Yeah.
Some of us love each other more than others. But.
That's true. I'm sorry, I did not acknowledge how long you've been here, Scott.
You're forgiven.
Thank you.
All right, how about you guys? What stands out? Any moments stand out, Scott, Murray, from...
I think the times when we've had special guests have always been, I think, the ones I've enjoyed the most. When we had Heath and Lori and we heard their story, their airplane story was really good. We had Wayne and Dana Tucker and just, wow, amazing life story. And of course, Lamar and Dee. And, we could have had all those people on for like multiple episodes.
Right.
Hearing their stories. And then the wives episode I thought was really good. I thought that was really important. I think, most churches expect to hear from their pastors, but they don't always understand the ministry, and even as pastors don't understand the ministry as well or through the lens of our wives. And I think their perspective on the ministry is often, just kind of slid under the rug. Nobody really cares what they think, but really they are quite perceptive and having tremendous insight. I would never be anywhere near the kind of pastor I need to be without my wife and what she does to support me and to give me insight into the ministry of the church. So that was a good one.
Yeah. I remember 3 words of that podcast, that episode, is Kim saying, "I'm raising sinners." And that was so important, I think, as we're as parents, especially raising kids in the church, is I'm not raising small pastors. They're not little pastors. They're little sinners. And so it's important for me to remember that.
I think it'd be important if we do another one with the wives to really focus on the difficulty, if you will, of being a pastor's wife. I think really would be key for our listeners to hear, the church to know how to walk alongside our wives and how difficult it is to be a pastor's wife. And just experience with Katie and I being married 23 years, she has said on numerous occasions, and it's completely true, she said, "You will never know what it's like to be a pastor's wife." And there's a lot of good in it, but there's a lot of difficulty that probably the church doesn't see, and sometimes in certain church situations actually makes it worse, And so not this church, I don't believe at all. This has been, we've said 100 times since we've been here, this church has really been a salve for Katie's soul and our family and our marriage. So that says, that's a testimony of KBC and the people of KBC. But I think it would be great for our people to hear, what is it like to be a pastor's wife and the difficulty that comes with that and the joy that comes with that. So, and then I would say, if you know me at all, if you have gotten to know me at all, then what would my favorite podcast be? Of course, would be number 2.
Conversation with Murray Van Gundy.
Conversation with myself.
I think everybody needs to know what your full name is and what your names mean. I think this is very important.
Well, so my full name, I have to say it like my ancestors said it, is Frederick Murray Van Gundy III has entered the building. Well, really, there's not a third on there, but it is Frederick Murray Van Gundy. And I had no idea what my names meant. Literally, I promise, I really didn't. I had no idea what my names meant. Katie and I were leading college students up to Glorieta for Collegiate Week, and we had some girls in our minivan, and they're like, "Well, what does your name mean?" And Katie's like, "It's probably like Lord and Master or something like that." Well, we looked up the name Frederick, And sure enough, it meant Lord and Master. She goes, she throws her hands off I think she was driving off the steering wheel. You're like, yeah, of course that's what it is. That explains a lot. And then they're like, well, what does Murray mean? And sure enough, they looked it up, and it is another example of Lord and Master. We almost flipped the minivan. She almost rolled the minivan. I think we hit a reflector on the side of the road because she said that explains a lot. So that's of his own domain. That's about it. Lord and Master of his own domain, and the domain's pretty small. So, but my favorite podcast. It's been 1 year for me, and for sure, I haven't been able to experience all the others. There are a lot of highlights in getting to talk about why expository preaching, that kind of stuff that's been rich for me, but would definitely be Lamar and Dee's interview and getting to talk to them. And that came about, I know there had been other interviews, but Scott and Toby and I, of course, Chris wasn't there once again. We were driving from lunch, and we were just talking about the wealth of experience and knowledge and wisdom at KBC. Kerrville, because, we're very new to Kerrville, 1 year. And Kerrville's very interesting because you get this eclectic group of people to move to a retirement town who have done things in life. Mm-hmm. And they come here. And then you take a microcosm of that called KBC, and there is a wealth, just in this room alone, right, of wisdom and knowledge. And so we said, man, there are people we need to talk to and hear from before they go be with the Lord, literally, and we need to do that. And we've even agreed we need to do more interviews. And so I'd say just getting to know Lamar and Dee was so sweet. Dee, you were so sweet. And as I had told you, Lamar was Lamar partly because of you. Mm-hmm. And but man, it was just real sweet. Like, I wanted to keep going. I wanted to record it. It was a James Bond movie that we were listening to. And it was so good. I wanted to tell every teenager, you need to go listen to this podcast because you're not going to believe it. Yeah. And then the sweet part of it was both you and Lamar saying that all of this is for naught if it weren't for your relationship with the Lord. The relationship with God through Jesus Christ is primary through all those pretty cool experiences.
Yeah. They said that was their greatest adventure.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite moments from that podcast was when Dee said that God is putting his finishing touches on both of them. Mm. What a precious encouragement that was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
what's next?
Moments. What is there a particular episode that sticks out? Obviously, we know the one that is most popular. Is there one that sticks out in your mind? That one for sure. Any others?
I don't remember anything.
I guess not.
I don't know. I have one, and they're not here tonight. They've been on a anniversary weekend away. I don't remember any specific line from it, but when I interviewed Carson Conklin, the spirit of that podcast stands out to me. Mm. Just as we heard his testimony, heard how God had humbled him even as a Christian, laid him low, that's the line he uses. And just the sweetness of just kind of the atmosphere and the tone, the humility that Carson exuded throughout that interview was very edifying to me personally. And so again, I couldn't tell you. I asked this question and he said this. It was just more of a just the spirit of the man.
Yeah.
And really, really encouraging.
Well, at the risk of the fact that some of my favorite episodes are the ones where you haven't been here. I don't mean it that way.
Just 30% of the top 10. But
I think one of the most kind of gut-wrenching ones that we did was the one about Uvalde. Why do bad things happen to good people? It was sort of part of our Christianese one-liners, but then it became a study in Job and comforting the afflicted, and what does it mean to sit with somebody in the ashes of their affliction and just be there with them. And I mentioned this. I think I mentioned it in church that next morning, but that was a hard fought one to bring to air because we had some serious technical difficulties and lost the first recording. And so we, Scott and Murray were both out running errands, and I was like, what are we going to do? Our 100th episode is coming up, and I don't have a 98.
Welcome to the 99th episode of
But they both, I texted them and said, hey, this has gone bad. I tried to recover it, and they both said, well, we'll come back and record it again. And the second time was shorter, and I think probably more refined than the first one. But yeah, I just thought that was very raw emotionally for all of us. So that one really sticks out as one of my favorite ones, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I think that was maybe one of my favorite ones. And I think it was unfortunate that we had to re-record it because I think the first one captured more of the raw aspect of what we were dealing with because it was just so fresh.
Yeah.
And but I think we tried to at least capture the essence of what we tried to do with the first recording with the
second time we were full of pizza and wings.
Yeah.
Once again, because Chris wasn't here. So
That's right.
So we went to Broken Stone. Broken Stone, shout out. Pretty good.
Yeah. Maybe they'll sponsor the next one. Chris?
One of the most memorable moments for me was very early on, and we reached sometime, early on we were all given the task to present whatever topic we were doing and give sort of introductory thoughts and then have the discussion. Well, I forget what it was, but it was my turn to give the introductory thoughts, and I was just kind of fumbling around with my words, and Chris is like, just get to the point. And I distinctly remember, wow, I need to pick up my game.
Chris McKnight, the broadcast king.
I thought you were going to say that time this is fairly recent because Toby has some great one-liners. This may have been during I can't keep distinct the Devo from the podcast. But let's just record all of it. But we were talking about something, and you gave a fairly long, theologically astute, biblically rooted, historically savvy description of said topic. And Toby said, whoa, that won't fit on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
That's why my books are over 500 pages and not under 200.
Right.
I remember the first time you told me about your book, and I said, that's going to look great on my bookshelf. You were over at our house, and Melissa was like elbowing me. You can't say that. But I did. You did.
It's done.
One of the other ones that I really thought was funny was the last one that we did, the number 99, where we started riffing on Chris's haircut. And how he could use the scraps to chase deer out of your yard.
Yeah. But not very many deer because there weren't very many.
Is this the one that has 0 downloads?
Yeah, 0 downloads. Sometimes the best ones go unnoticed. And then Chris is like, don't we have a topic?
Right.
Eventually, it's that same, just get to the point.
Right.
Yeah. Don't we have a topic? Well,
so I told the lady, I said, I want the 2, Clipper 2, do the 2. She said, you sure I can't put this back when we're done? And I said, do it. And they don't start on the back or the side, they start right here. Boom. I mean, it's like, you're all in, right? So she did my whole head with the 2, and I looked at it, it's like, maybe we should go a little lower. You got something extra, it would be 1.5. I said, okay, let's do 1.5. She did the 1.5. I was like, I think I like the 2 better.
you got a lot of traction out of that haircut. A lot of comments.
It grows back.
Yeah.
So.
I asked if you did it yourself, and you said no. You paid for it. You paid $22.
No, I paid
for it.
$22 for this. Yeah.
Murray would have done it for free.
Yeah, I said I could do it for free.
Right.
I'll bring the clippers.
They were working it out how to set up a little barber stand in the men's room.
Good.
Yeah. So good. Anything else before we kind of open it up to some questions? No.